Because I got to find all the reference material because he still kept it up even though I saved it. I saved it all because I figured that he would take it all down because it would make him look foolish, but I guess not. Which is shocking to me because everything he said was completely... This is not what you want to hear from anybody.
Are you talking about that flat earth guy? The guy who called you flat earther?
Well, you called me a flat earther. Okay, his name, I'm not going to tell you his real name, but I will tell you a name that sounds like his. Rance McGrew. He's like the quickest. Okay. He's the quickest gun in the West, except he's not. Rance McGrew is actually a character from a Twilight Zone episode about an actor who plays a cowboy western star, and he's like a complete fraud or something. But I'm not calling Rance a complete fraud. I'm calling. I think he's a kind of a kid, based on what I know a little bit about him. But this started a couple of days ago because, well, maybe it even started like a week ago. He was putting together a podcast, and he's pretty good in like announcing or publicizing what he intends to do, right? So he wanted like some opinions. I guess he wanted opinions. I mean, what do you think? You know, it's like this is what we're going to be talking about. What do you think? That kind of a thing, and it had to do with using like the N-word or something. It's like you can't use the N-word anymore. Do you think that's a bad... You know, he asked the questions. It's so weird. Where is it? Recently, Marlon Anderson was fired from his job at the Boys and Girls Club and later rehired after reprimanding a student who called him an N-word by telling him not to call him an N-word. Does this zero-tolerance policy on racial slurs cross the line of common sense? He's asking questions, right? So I answered. I basically said, nobody owns a word. I don't care what Ice Cube says. You don't own that word. What I really wanted to say, even though it's controversial, and you'll probably want to back away from this one, is that white people kind of invented the word. It's our word for describing them, to quote Homer Simpson.
Well, you got to remember. I go back to the movie Pool Hall Junkies. Okay, from what I understand, I'm not going to say the word, but I'm going to say the N.
Come on, say it.
Here. No. You say. You say ER is derogatory, and then you end it with A. It's a form. It's a term of endearment.
That's
so
it's a term of endearment. Again, well, I guess that's the best way to go about it. Yes, I would probably.
Pool junkies, for Christ's sake, and that was one of the best ways to say it, because if you end it in ER, it's derogatory, but if you end it in A, it's a term of endearment.
All right, okay. I'll give you that. Okay, I'll give you that. But again, I would have to say. But I brought up the Bill Maher episode, and he didn't seem to know about it. Okay, this is the thing. I answered his question because it seemed like he was taking a random poll, and I don't mean just a large black one. He was trying to figure out what kind of questions he should talk about, or what they should talk about based on what he was talking about. And I mentioned the whole Bill Maher incident, and he didn't seem to know what the hell I was talking about because he mentioned my comments on his podcast. And he was talking about Ice Cube, and he was like, because I said no matter what Ice Cube says, nobody owns a word.
And then I had one more from David. He said, and this gentleman, he often serves as a counterpoint to most of the things that I bring up, whether it be on my personal social media or punk journalism. He said, I think words are words. Sticks and stones are another thing. I also think Ice Cube should shut up. I don't know what that means. No one group owns a word. And again, I think, just looking at a picture of this guy, I can, he looks like a Caucasian. Have you seen him?
Yeah. He comments on literally everything, and I almost without saying, when he comments, I'm like, I'm going to 100% disagree with what he's going to say.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, it almost seems like by default, like if I say puppies are good, then he's going to say we should drown all puppies or something.
Yeah, like who is this guy? Do you know
I don't
him?
know. So I really don't care that much about social media, so I use my personal social media as a way to pull people in to advertise for the podcast. So I friend request people in groups that are like political groups or social issue groups. So the majority of people that I'm quote unquote friends with on social media, I don't even know. So
okay.
So yeah, I don't know this person.
Interesting. Because he's very active when you post.
Yeah.
Like he's really active. He's really quick to like jump on whatever you have to say. And I'm always just like, does Chance like know this guy from a different life?
I don't know.
Like who is this dude?
But I always kind of get excited when he does, because then I think like it puts, because there's a lot of conversation going back and forth, it kind of pushes that conversation to the top of people's feeds.
Well, right. And,
yes.
and again, I think that one of the purposes of this podcast is to not create an echo chamber, right?
Yeah, totally.
And he's like, I don't know what he's talking about. The thing is, if you're working on a podcast about this, you might want to do your due diligence and do a little research. But the whole idea was Bill Maher used the N-word, okay, and then he was torn a new one in the press the following week, and
he wasn't even using it, deliberately. He was using it in context,
and also he was using it for fun. I mean, it was humor. He was doing it as a joke. He's a comedian. And Ice Cube comes on the next week to basically publicly chew him out and make Bill Maher apologize, as though Ice Cube has any standing in this, which he doesn't. He's one of the worst offenders. And I also made a point of saying that when it comes to whole groups of people, what group of people uses this word more than any other group? And apparently it's not okay when another group uses it, but it's okay if another, and like you said, it's a term of endearment, but it's still there. I mean, it's like, you change a couple of letters, it's still kind of the same thing.
I mean, that word it's like they say in Clerks 2, that word was invented by racist freaking bigots, okay? You can't, in my opinion, you can't take a derogatory word and make it a term of endearment.
I guess, yeah. And it's also kind of like a bastardization of a word. Like you take the word Negro and you don't know how to say it, or you're too lazy. You're just too lazy for those extra, vowels at the end, and then you change it to something else, whatever it might be. But then, they go on and use it, and that's fine. But the thing is, if it's okay for them, it should be okay for everyone. I think everyone should. Words are not, to me, words aren't illegal. I don't think you should be fired for using a word. I don't think Papa John should be fired for using a word.
Well, unfortunately,
I don't think Paula Dean should.
Ironically enough that you say this, there was this was in the news recently about someone was giving a lecture or something like that, and she used the N-word in context, but they fired her.
Yeah,
or she was asked to resign because she was a white person who said the N-word.
Well, white person, yes.
Yes, white person who said the N-word, which you can't do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like freedom of speech is protected, but not hate speech. Sorry.
I guess. Well, the thing about hate speech, I don't know. Maybe we'll differ on this, but I don't believe in hate speech unless you're actually actively inciting people to commit acts of violence against another group of people.
No, I don't condone hate speech whatsoever. I think it's morally reprehensible. It's like there should be no reason to slander a particular group or a particular race of people just because.
I hope that includes white people on your list too, right?
Exactly.
A whole group of people should not go hating on them.
I don't call people the N-word. I don't want people calling me. I can say this. I don't want people calling me cracker.
Well, no, I have to admit that sometimes when I'm sitting by myself in my kitchen and the kiddies are asleep and my wife's asleep and the daughter's asleep, I'll just say the word over and over again and laugh. But anyway, so this led into like this back and forth. He kept, because his next episode after that is about climate change, which he's working on tonight, I guess. And he has like a professor from the Department of Atmospheric Science from Colorado State University on the podcast, but he, again, not doing his due diligence, he refuses to accept the other side of the argument. And the thing is, I believe in climate. I believe that climate change is occurring because it has to. It's obviously just something that happens with the climate, and it's either going to get warmer, or it's going to get hotter. But how and why is where I differ, and I also differ on the 97% figure because that came from an Al Gore documentary called what was it?
An Inconvenient Truth.
An Inconvenient Nutsack. He made a movie and he talked about it. And the thing, Al Gore is one of our much older and more hypocritical of these people because he goes and talks about how the environment is being ruined. And then you have this extinction cult out there led by a 16-year-old fucked up kind of kooky young lady named Greta Thunberg, and it seems like they're just trying to scare people, and that's what really bugs me about the whole climate change thing is we could actually be doing things instead of scaring each other. And the thing is, you and me, We can't do anything about this. The only people who can do things about this are the very corporations that are trying to scare us, make us buy products or make us invest in some kind of technology when it seems like what they're really trying to do is make a lot of money. And that's what bugs me. And the science, for me, is not settled on that. It's not settled on how or why. I mean, not like it's important if it is a problem, but I don't think we're all going to die in 12 years, and I don't think we're going to die in 100 years. I think the world's going to be around for a very long time for my daughter to ruin, in some way, and your children to ruin. They'll be out there.
My kids are going to fuck up this planet. You telling me?
My daughter's going to be right there.
I'm already in fear of this generation. They already scare me.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird though hearing. Well, I mean these guys, their podcast is called Punk Journalism. I can reveal that much about it, and all you have to do is a couple of keystrokes, and you'll find out who it, or a couple of zipper strokes, if you will, and figure out what they're all about. And when you listen to them, they just sound like two extremely scared white guys talking about things and not really doing anything about it. So, words of advice for a podcast, and if you're going to call yourself some form of journalism, get both sides. He accused me of being a flat earther because I just don't buy his explanation. I don't buy what he's trying to sell, and I don't really buy a lot of what he's talking about. He actually says something here which I thought was incredible to me, because other people did share some ideas.
Disbelief.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were looking at it from different points of view. There's a couple of scientists in Ireland who produced a couple of videos talking about where it's possible, if there was any climate change, how it might be affected. But I invited these people to come on a podcast and talk about it with me. Instead, they insulted me by calling me a flat earther. The Earth is really not flat. I don't think it's flat at all. I mean, that's just sort of, it's my opinion. I could be wrong, but
I guess they were trying to say you're a flat. They're saying you're a flat earther, saying that your ideas are draconian and make no sense. That's why they're calling you a flat earther, so to speak.
And they were, I guess,
the best insult that they can give,
Well, and they were also trying to put me in a column of a conservative, or like somebody who's a lobbyist for the Oil and Gas Administration, or
you're anything but a fucking conservative.
I'm really, I'm a liberal, but I consider myself a classical liberal in that I will not be led by hysteria and panic. And that's how liberals used to be, at least maybe 20 years ago, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, liberals today are this, unfortunately, I fall into this category by a fucking year, but I am considered a millennial. I don't consider myself a millennial. I'm a fucking Gen Xer, and I'll take that to my fucking grave. But I am, I'm an old school liberal. I'm not like one of these new fancy pants liberal fucking millennial pieces of trash. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, it's my own way of saying I don't like, because the new liberals, they're fucking pansies, okay? They're pussies, all right? They don't have balls. That's the problem. Okay, best story I can give you, and this is God's honest truth, okay? So I work in the food service industry, okay? I had a person come in from Jimmy John's picking up food, and then I was joking with them saying, hey, where's my sandwich? A simple joke, all right? This person went back to their manager, and their manager called fucking corporate on me because I insulted them.
Really? You just made one little offhand thing. You sound
you
sound like the lady I was trying to explain humor to earlier.
I mean, and this is what pisses me off about liberals these days, is because they are taking shit way too seriously, and they can't take a fucking joke.
They can't take a joke, and they're way too sensitive.
Yes, they're way too sensitive. And even my boss, he got the corporate call. He laughed his balls off. He literally said, you got a corporate call for some dumb bullshit. and he said, I'm not mad at you. If that were me, I would have joked right back with him. I would have said, hey, where's my sandwich?
Well, you know what you should do is probably call their corporate office and say something. This person didn't have a sense of humor.
I'm working on something. I have
good.
A little idea of brewing, but I'm working on something to get them. So
that's
whatever.
Good.
I mean, it just goes to show you, it's like the liberal generation. They take shit way too seriously. They can't take a joke. They're a bunch of pansies. They're easily offended. You can still be liberal and have a good sense of humor and not take offense to anything.
You need to. I mean, it's very important that you disagree with people. It's very important that you have a position for debate rather than oh, well, I'm going to do
You're wrong.
I'm going to do a podcast, and I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. Does anybody have any questions? I'd be like, well, yeah. Question the 97% figure that you and a lot of other media outlets seem to arrive at, because I don't think that all scientists agree on this. I think all scientists have different ideas. Science is about an exchange of ideas. It's about theories. It's not about conjecture. It's not about having a solid figure on something. I mean, if it were, I mean, like, the thing is, if we all agreed on the same thing, it'd be a really fucking boring world, don't you think?
Right. That's always been the standard. No two people can agree on anything and everything, and that's what's good about it, because you need to leave room for debate.
Yes. Last night I watched Big Trouble in Little China on Blu-ray. I am now convinced, after watching this movie, it is one of the greatest, most perfect movies I've ever seen in my life. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with me about that.
I mean, they're going to disagree. I'm not going to fucking disagree with you. I love that.
I was watching this and I was saying, this is fucking art. I am watching art here. I mean, I never enjoyed a movie more than I enjoyed that movie. Anyway, that's just me. All right.